In the news this week, debate over WA's Voice to Parliament 2.0 intensifies despite public opposition. A WAMI News exclusive.
Argument over gun rights, government shooting victims, opposition and farmers clash over findings of the parliamentary report. And knock knock, who's there? Thieves dressed up as police rob homes in Perth's east. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. Reactions continue on the ongoing debate over whether Western Australia should adopt a state-based Voice to Parliament 2.0 following Victoria and South Australia's implementation. This comes after First Nations leaders called for a treaty and a third chamber with veto powers on this program 3 weeks ago. Their push continues despite our opinion poll showing strong public rejection of the proposal.
So you support the third chamber, you support veto
voice
power,
yep.
and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But then what about those, some people just think, well, aren't we putting one race ahead of the other? There are some arguments for that.
Look, I think the reality is that when you look at all of those things, at the moment, the power that is, the remaining 97% of the population is well catered for. They have the veto power, they have the representation in Parliament, they have the voice to Parliament. Why do we exclude that 3%?
How are they excluded?
Well, they excluded because their needs are not being met. Their needs, they don't have a voice to Parliament. The ethnic communities have a voice to Parliament. We have agencies, we have multicultural advisory groups, we have all these groups that actually go into Parliament and actually say, you know, and they talk to ministers about that. And you have ministers who are specifically there for CALD issues, culturally and linguistically diverse issues. We have a minister for multicultural interests. So multicultural interests are being looked after. What's not being looked after is Aboriginal issues. People will respond by saying, but we have people who are from Aboriginal background who are in Parliament, but they're not elected on the basis of their Aboriginality. They're elected because they represent this area. So they become a person who needs to represent everyone in that area, not just the Aboriginal community. So it is really the fact that the original inhabitants of this land don't have a voice for them in Parliament. Yes, we have an Aboriginal Affairs Department, but the Aboriginal Affairs Department is funded and completely governed by the government. What we're looking for here is to say, give the position of power to people rather than the bureaucracy, and these are people out there who actually have the need and have the desire for things.
Okay, so what sort of outcome you think you can achieve with third chamber, veto power, voice to Parliament?
Look, I think that what you will find is that this is a chamber that will then examine the impact of particular bits of legislation on the Aboriginal communities because of their Aboriginality. Whatever it may be something that goes to housing, it may be something that goes to some other service, child protection. But this chamber can come back and say, well, hang on a second, if that is put in place, it will disadvantage us by these factors. And it is really bringing the voice, amplifying the voice of the Aboriginal people into Parliament where the decisions are being made. And I think that's important.
You think you can achieve with third chamber, veto power, voice to Parliament?
Look, I think that what you will find is that this is a chamber that will then examine the impact of particular bits of legislation on the Aboriginal communities because of their Aboriginality. Whatever it may be something that goes to housing, it may be something that goes to some other service, child protection. But this chamber can come back and say, well, hang on a second, if that is put in place, it will disadvantage us by these factors. And it is really bringing the voice, amplifying the voice of the Aboriginal people into Parliament where the decisions are being made. And I think that's important. That's really important because all they're acting as is a veto power, which means that they're looking at the legislation that other people are coming up with and looking at what the impact is going to be on them. And the reality is that nobody can tell us what the impact is going to be on Aboriginal people in remote Western Australia other than the people of Aboriginal descent in remote Western Australia. And that's why we need that voice to Parliament. That's why they need to have the veto power to say, no, that's not going to work. Yes, that's going to work.
But it's highly unlikely that this will go through.
Look, I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's a pipe dream. I don't think it'll ever happen. It won't happen in my lifetime. I think that it is something that is going to so radically change the face of government in Western Australia that it will take many generations to bed down. I don't think it'll happen until we see perhaps more representation, even in the current Parliament, of Aboriginal people.
The debate over Western Australia's firearm legislation continues to play out, following a parliamentary committee report, with both sides claiming the findings support their respective positions. The government, joined by victims and advocates affected by the Florian murders, responded to the report's release. Meanwhile, the opposition, farmers and gun shop owners criticised the report as sanitised and partisan. Steve Anderson reports.
A show of unity among two camps on firearm legislation unfolded at Parliament this week after a committee report reviewing WA's gun laws went public.
The privilege of owning a firearm should not outrank the public's right not to be threatened, intimidated, coerced, and brutally murdered by one. And so I support these reforms that reinforce that a perpetrator of family and domestic violence cannot be considered a fit and proper person to hold a firearms licence.
The Standing Committee report found that the Firearms Act of 2024 and its accompanying regulations were reasonable and justified, and the new laws make Western Australia the toughest jurisdiction in the country for gun control, limiting the number of firearms a person can own and introducing mandatory health checks. Since the reforms came to effect in March, more than 67,000 firearms have been removed from circulation through buyback programs, while WA police have seized over 3,000 weapons from offenders and organised crime groups.
Whether those guns are used in perpetrating violence against people or not, having a gun in a household where violence is being used automatically makes that gun a threat. So taking these firearms out of that situation does improve the safety of women and children in Western Australia.
Nationals leader Shane Love criticised the report, saying the review sidestepped the real issues surrounding the laws, including what he described as inadequate consultation, a rushed legislative process, and technical problems with the state's firearms licensing portal.
What the committee has found is that the implementation of the Firearms Act has been deeply flawed and that people are being forced to use a portal and a system that is not working. It's also recommended that there be reconvening of the medical working group to look again at those health assessments that are required under the Act. We know that Western Australia has the lowest number of GPs per 100,000 people of any state in Australia. And we know that in regional areas that shortage is even more acute. And to ask a GP who is already working beyond capacity to dedicate time to go through the requirements of this Act is in fact wrong.
He called on the government to respond to the committee's recommendations before the end of the year rather than waiting until early 2026, arguing that firearm owners deserve clarity and certainty. Steve Anderson, WAMN News.
Perth Lord Mayor-elect Bruce Reynolds has won the City of Perth mayoral race, defeating 5 other candidates following a slow and bumpy count. The counting went on for 5 hours on Saturday night, with WAMN News being the only media outlet present in the tally room. Supporters congratulated Mr Reynolds after receiving news of his preliminary victory. The final result was confirmed this morning by the returning officer. Mr Reynolds then gave WAMN News an exclusive interview shortly after the results were announced.
A little bit grey around the gills. It was, it was good to catch up with a lot of people last night and thank them for all the work they've put into this campaign. very proud to be the 19th Lord Mayor or Lord Mayor-elect, but on Tuesday, all things being equal, be sworn in as the Lord Mayor, and really humbled and certainly honoured. It's a privilege. And it's something that we now front up and get to work. Yeah, well, number one is to be the safest capital city in Australia, and the reason I want to do that is the knock-on effect fiscally, from a tourism point of view, from an education point of view, for people studying abroad, for our residents. It all makes sense, and we've got a really good opportunity to be able to do that with a lot of cooperation from our state government, and I'm sure received it. One of the first messages I received last night was from Premier Cook, who was at the telethon ball, congratulating me, and I can't wait to get to work with our state and our council to provide that.
The City of Perth has also made history this weekend, with ratepayers elected the youngest councillor ever. 18-year-old Lisa Ma becomes councillor-elect after a nail-biting victory against her rivals. She speaks first to WA News.
My commitment is definitely to build that connection and bridge between the young people and decision-making bodies. And us young people, we work, live and study here. And I'm currently studying at UWA, studying business law. And I believe that my commitment is to ultimately voice their thoughts, voice their opinions, and know that we are collectively are strong, and council decisions affect students like us, young people like us. And so that is my passion, to voice for the youth.
Detectives are appealing for public help after an alleged aggravated home burglary in Carlisle, where two men posing as police officers reportedly stole cash and personal items. The incident occurred around 12:20 a.m. on Friday, 29th of August 2025, at a Planet Street residence. The men allegedly presented fake documents to gain entry, with one watching the occupants while the others searched a room. They then allegedly fled in a white SUV. No injuries were reported, and police believe the incident was targeted. The first suspect is described as 45 to 55, medium build, clean shaven. The second as 30 to 40, slim, clean shaven. Both wore dark blue undershirts, vests marked police, and dark pants. Police have released CCTV footage of a vehicle they believe is linked, and are asking anyone with information or CCTV dashcam footage from the area to contact Crime Stoppers.
WA Police has reaffirmed its zero-tolerance stance on illicit firearms following recent coordinated operations across the state that led to multiple weapon seizures. Police said these resulted from planned search warrants targeting criminal activities involving unauthorised weapons. Many recovered firearms were originally registered but later obtained illegally, posing serious risks to the community. WA Police said it remains committed to support responsible firearm owners while taking firm action against illegal possession and distribution. These seizures reflect the dedication and vigilance of our frontline officers in safeguarding the community, the statement says. The agency emphasised these efforts are part of a broader strategy to disrupt organised crime and urged the public to report any suspicious activity to help keep WA safe.
And here are other top stories making news in Perth and WA this weekend.
Another nationwide protest took place in Perth, joining the anti-mass migration demonstrations as the housing and cost of living crises continue to put pressure on Australian families. During an interview, One Nation WA leader and MLC Rod Caddies referenced data from Anglicare showing that only 1.5 to 2% of working people can afford to rent. It's the second time this rally has been held across Australia. The EU ambassador to Australia attended the Global Maritime Emergency Drill in Henderson this week and spoke to the media. The program aims to enhance maritime security, safety and environmental protection. The ambassador highlighted the importance of Australian and WA ports, noting that 40% of global trade to EU passes through the Indo-Pacific. He stressed that free trade and secure maritime routes are crucial for global wealth and that liberal democracies are working together to strengthen trade ties. And now here's Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. There's been lots of people observing how much infectious disease has been around this winter with COVID, RSV, influenza, human metapneumovirus and others. And it's a timely reminder to be up to date with our vaccinations, but also that post-virally you can get lingering symptoms like an irritating dry cough and so on, which can go on for a while. And it's worth talking to your doctor about whether a puffer might be the right idea to try to see if you do have a little bit of bronchospasm, which is tightening of the airways, can be a symptom of asthma if it's a chronic disorder. But a post-viral kind of irritating dry cough that goes on for ages can certainly often be helped with a period of inhalers, which might be the salbutamol type inhalers or the steroid-based inhalers, which are different to the kind of steroids you use to get big muscles, and help settle down inflammation and the swelling that goes on within the smooth muscles that line the little bronchioles, the little pipes inside the lungs. So if you have any kind of lingering symptoms from this winter's onslaught of all of the diseases that have been around, then it's a good idea to have a chat to your GP about it, get everything checked over, make sure that your systems are heading back towards normal. Make sure you get vaccinated before these ravaging waves of illness come around again. Particularly, don't forget that COVID's still a nasty disease. And RSV also has a vaccine. Influenza has a vaccine. These are diseases that can be, if not avoided, at least very much reduced in their effects on our systems by being vaccinated ahead of time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, before we go, a big congratulations to the founder of 6 News, Leo Polisi, who's just graduated high school.
Well, at his age, he's interviewed almost everybody in this country, the most important ones, prime ministers, federal oppositions, everyone else and everything else in between. Kiddo, you have achieved so much. The whole team, everybody here is very proud of you here in the West. Congratulations on your achievement, and we can't wait to see what you will achieve in your adulthood.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Subscribe to WAMN Extra News Club, supporting independent local news, keeping democracy strong. wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly, Steve, Paige, and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next week.
Thanks for watching.